I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, the ADA Title VI grievance forms as well as a voluntary public involvement survey are available in the hanging wall files for anyone interested. Next, the approval of minutes. I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes since our last regularly scheduled meeting.
Second.
Motion made by Albert, seconded by Mr. Bushinsky. Is there any discussion? Mr. Bushinsky?
Yes.
Mrs. Pothorsky?
Yes.
Ms. Deal?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Albert votes yes. Passes 5-0. Next, the approval of claims.
Make a motion. Go ahead. Make a motion to approve the claims.
Okay. Second?
Second it.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Bushinsky, seconded by Ms. Kelly to approve the claims. Is there any discussion? Mr. Bushinsky?
Yes.
Mrs. Pothorsky?
Yes.
Mrs. Deal?
Yes.
And Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Albert votes yes, passes 5-0. I'm going to change things around a little bit. We have Baker Tilly here on the financial management reports. We'll go ahead and, since you're an hour ahead of us.
Yeah, all right. Appreciate that. Well, good evening. So I wanted to present a few things tonight. Well, first of all, I guess, are we wanting us to cover this summary tonight? Okay. I didn't want to steal your thunder. So just a reminder, this is the first year of this type of reporting. And so really the purpose of these reports, both on the civil side and then on the utility side, is to present a snapshot, a summary, reporting on activity, how the town performed for 2023 in this case, budget and actual, and then also looking ahead, what do things look like in the future. So tonight we have the water and sewer reports, which we'll walk through, and then we also have this summary that we call semi-annual council report, but really the purpose of it is to sort of highlight some things that the town has accomplished from a financial standpoint. So we'll kind of cover that. And there's one other report that we're still working through that we intend to have back to you prior to starting the budget process, and that's the comprehensive financial plan. And that really looks at sort of the property tax side. So tonight's kind of utilities, and then that will kind of cover the general fund and property tax side. So just a few things maybe to highlight in the town council finance packet. And Lori, feel free to jump in here if you want. The first page, if you have that, shows just kind of at the top, just sort of a summary, review and summary for 2023. A couple things to point out: completed community crossings grant project in 2023, which involves some street upgrade projects. Completed construction on the new street department building. Completed the connection of the Westville Correctional Center to the Sound Sewage Works, which resulted in a 37% decrease to the monthly sewer bill. And then also began collecting public safety local income taxes for the first time in 2023. So just kind of wanted to highlight those things. At the bottom of the page, we provide a historical summary of the town's core funds. So that, again, this is on the civil side. It includes general fund, local road and street, motor vehicle highway, park, CCD, seeded, local income tax, public safety, and then it provides some targeted cash balance levels that you see there between 15 and 50%. So I guess high level, just wanted to point out, if you look back to 2020, if you look at those core funds, those totaled about 1.9 million. At the end of 2023, those totaled about 2.5 million. So the town's been able to obviously meet its goals and tackle projects, but at the same time build its reserves a little bit for future needs. So good positive trend there in terms of your core fund balances. On the next page, sort of listing out the various spending categories in case there's interest in, okay, where's the town, again, on the property tax side, the civil side, where's the town spending its money? A lot of it is in personal services. You can see that makes up a good chunk of the total operating disbursements in 2023, which in total was about $1.1 million. So that was the total amount within those core funds that were spent in 2023. So roughly half goes towards personal services. About $81,000 went towards supplies. Another $355,000 went towards services and charges, and then about $72,000 went towards capital outlays. So it just kind of gives you an idea in terms of where those funds are going. Then down at the bottom, we show a schedule of budget utilization by fund. So what this shows is how much the town actually spent compared to what it budgeted in each one of its funds. And we break that down again by those same core funds. Just kind of looking at general fund, because that's the, obviously your largest fund. The town spent roughly $600,000 of the $700,000 that it budgeted. So underspent within the general fund. If you total up all the funds, the town spent 81% of the budget. So about 20% went left unspent. So again, that kind of speaks to kind of how the town has been able to build up those cash reserves year over year. Then on the next page, this sort of focuses on the revenue side. So where did the money come from? So property tax, of course, we have property taxes. That's the one of the largest components of revenues that comes into the town. And then we have other taxes and intergovernmental revenues that are coming in. So property taxes, roughly $500,000. Other taxes, meaning income tax and other taxes by the state, make up about $450,000. And then local income tax, about $217,000. And then the rest, roughly $90,000, represents charges for services, license, and permits. So probably not surprising, but the biggest chunk is about 40% of property taxes, and then followed by other taxes and intergovernmental revenues. And when we get to, I mentioned we're working on the comprehensive financial plan. Now what that will involve is actually looking at all these expenditures and revenues and forecasting those funds, those cash flows out over the next 5 years. So we'll be digging into these a lot more once we get to the comprehensive financial plan. Let's see. Yeah, we kind of covered revenues, 2023 revenues that's listed down there at the bottom. And then really the last page is just a summary. Lori was helpful in putting together sort of a narrative that sort of highlights certain things that occurred in 2023, so that's very helpful. And then down at the very bottom, there's we add just sort of an overall financial welfare check. So reporting transparency, meeting reserve targets, and then capital improvement plan. A couple things that the town could consider at some point going forward is looking to establish like an investment in cash policy, and then also a debt policy. So those are things that we could work on together at some point in the future. But all in all, I think it's pretty good to report. 2023 was a good solid year, lots of projects completed, and still the town was still able to underspend a little bit on the budget side and build cash reserves a little bit. So again, the purpose of the report, just provide those highlights and also provide transparency to the citizens within the town. So any questions on that one? Okay. So then we'll transition to the utility reports. And maybe we'll just start with the water utility. I have that one sort of top of mind here. So again, the purpose of these reports is to report on the performance of the utility previous year, which would be 2023. This is the first year. Normally, we would show like budget to actual and then how the utility performed. Right now, we're just comparing 22 to 23. Then going forward, we'll have budget to actual. But the intent is to track performance, and then we also look at the cash position, the strength of the cash position within the utility, making sure that the town or the utility is meeting its cash reserve requirements for the bond ordinance outstanding, and then also, maybe more importantly, looks at the future in terms of rates and ability for revenues to cover future costs. So, starting on page 1, and again, we're not going to go through all these numbers and graphs in detail, just kind of hit some of the highlights here. Page 1 just shows the historical trend, looking at total cash within the water utility, starting from 2021 to 2023. So back in 2021, you can see that total cash within the utility was a little over $1 million, $1,037,000. And then we're seeing a decrease in cash of roughly $130,000 in 2022, and then further decrease in 2023. So at the end of 2023, the utility had about $720,000 in total cash. So over that 3-year period, there's been a reduction of about $300,000 in the total cash position. All right, and then on page 2, at the top, there's a graph that's sort of an illustration of the total receipts and the total disbursements by year. And so I'll just kind of focus on 2023, which is the far right column. So total receipts within the water utility is just over $500,000, and total disbursements were about $684,000. So you can see that the majority of those costs, the right column, represents your operating costs. So that's the $424,000 there, which, by the way, has continued to increase over the last 3 years. If you look at 2021, 2022, we see that it's just shy of $400,000 in 2021, and then that grows up to over $400,000 in 2023. A lot of that is just inflation. We've been in a much higher inflationary environment, starting back in 2021 and continued. It's come down a little bit, obviously, but it's still continuing into 2023. You'll also point out that in 2022, 2023, the top sort of gray box there, that represents capital expenditures. So in 2022, the utility spent over $100,000 in capital, and then in 2023, it spent over $152,000 in capital. So those were some of the primary drivers there that were driving the decrease in cash over the last 3 years, a little bit higher than typical in past years. So in summary, in terms of revenues compared to costs are outpacing revenues, and so we'll kind of talk a little bit about that here as we move along. The bottom graph on page 2 just shows you sort of a breakdown again of where those dollars within the water utility are being spent. So this looks at operating costs. So your day-to-day operating costs, breaks it down by personnel, repairs and maintenance, material supplies, professional services, and other. You can see that on the whole, the spending in those categories is not a whole lot of change from year to year. It's pretty consistent. There was an increase in some of the other operating costs, I know, in 2023 a little bit, but on the whole, again, pretty consistent from year to year. Then on page 3, this is sort of a continuation of looking at that trend and decrease in cash. So in 2021, again, total cash is a little over $1 million, and we've seen that go down to just over $700,000. The different color-coded boxes represent the different various funds. and where we see the spend down, not surprisingly, but we see the spend down in the operating fund. So that light green box you see within the operation maintenance fund, the utility had $639,000 in 2021, and then we've seen that go down to just over $300,000 in 2023. So again, we're seeing that operating costs are outpacing any increases in revenues. I will point out, though, that you'll see that gray line in the middle. What that gray line represents is the minimum amount of cash, total cash reserves that the utility should always maintain per the bond ordinance. So you can see that even though cash has gone down over the last 3 years, you're still able to meet that requirement. So that's something that we'll continue to focus on going forward. All right. So on page 4, and I'm kind of taking more time to go through this because I know it's the first time going through it. With the sewer report, we'll walk through this a little bit quicker. But the top of page 4 is the comparison of 2023 actual revenues to 2022 actual revenues. Now going forward, we'll show, this year we'll be creating a budget. And so next year we'll show actual to budget, so we can track budget to actual a little bit better. But just comparing the last 2 years, you can see that revenues actually went down a little bit in 2023 by roughly $15,000, so about 3% reduction in revenues. Much of that had to do with some miscellaneous receipts. So dollar-wise, not a big reduction, but they did go down a little bit this last year. Bottom of page 4, large user historical receipts. One of the things we kind of keep a close eye on are your large users. That's obviously a major driver. Anytime we see some potential fluctuations in usage, or if you happen to lose a large user, obviously it can have a pretty dramatic effect on the revenues coming in. As we all know, South Coast is the largest user, so you can see kind of their trend in revenues over the last 3 years, the gray sort of aqua, and then the blue column there being the most recent. And then that's followed by Beaumar Mobile Home Park, New Durham, McDonald's, and Westville Associates Apartments. So then on top of page 5, it shows sort of, if you look at total revenues coming into the utility, how much of that is made up of your larger users. And you can see there that, almost a third is made up of South Coast, so they make up almost a third of your total water revenues coming in, and the remaining 65% is mostly residential. Of course, we know that's going to change going forward at some point, just not quite there yet with the correctional facility. And then table 6 down at the bottom, that's where we're looking at the operating costs, comparing 2022 to 2023. So the town actually spent less in 2023 than the previous year by about $15,000. So that kind of helped offset the $15,000 reduction in revenue. Town spent a little bit less, mostly within the repairs and maintenance and professional services line items there. All right, and then top of page 6, we're going to round out the kind of focusing on the costs of debt service as the next cost category, table 7. Not really much to report there, other than the town continues to make bond payment, which is good, just over $107,000, $108,000 per year. And then in terms of capital replacements, the utility spent about $150,000 in 2023, which was roughly $50,000 higher than the previous year. And then the bottom, let's see, table 9 at the bottom there, just again sort of compares total revenues to the breakdown of the total disbursements by category. So then page 7 is where we begin to project out over the next 5 years. And table 10 reflects the projected revenues, so operating receipts and then non-operating receipts. Really, The main thing I want to point out here is, even though it's still very early in the process, we have projected out potentially what the revenues could be coming in from Westville Corrections. And you can see second line item there that we're assuming that, the town begins to collect some revenues late 2024, and then during construction, some revenues into 2025, but then full revenues starting in 2026, right around $900,000 per year. So that'll be obviously a pretty good source of additional revenue coming in. Now, there will be some additional costs, and we continue to go through a cost of service study to determine what the appropriate rates are to be charged to the corrections facility. But ultimately, that will depend on the final cost of the project and how it's funded. So some of what we put together here are still estimates, obviously, but we have taken that into account going forward here. And so looking ahead, we're estimating that annual revenues will go from roughly $500,000 a year currently up to something closer to about $1.5 million a year. So we've kind of done the same thing on the cost side, so I'm not going to go into these numbers in detail, but table 11 estimates future operating costs, and again, we have taken into account the WCC connection, estimating that it'd be completed around the end of 2025, and we have built in additional operating costs there. So a pretty steep curve you see is starting in 2026. And then table 12 down below, we've included the existing debt service on the 2016 bonds, as well as an assumed proposed bond issue towards the end of this year associated with the WCC. So that reflects those projected debt service payments based on what we know now. And then lastly, at the bottom of page 12, you can see that starting in 2026, once full revenues are being collected from the WCC, that we're assuming that the water utility needs to pay what we call a payment in lieu of taxes. And if you're not familiar with that, state law allows for municipal utilities to actually pay the general fund, what we call a payment in lieu of taxes, because utility is a tax-exempt entity. However, the state statute allows for the utility to pay the general fund as if they were a tax-paying entity. And so that allows for some additional revenues to get to the general fund. So that's what that $82,000 number is that you see there on table 12. All right. So page 9, kind of bringing all this together. Well, table 13, top of page 9. We're reflecting what the estimated capital replacement costs are going forward. You can see those numbers there, ranging from roughly $38,000 this year all the way up to over $300,000 in 2028. So those are some costs that we will take into account when we're working on the final cost of service study. So that brings us down below to the bottom of page 9, which if we add up all the projected revenues, the projected expenses of the utility each year through 2028, what we're finding is that in 2024 and 2025, so the next couple of years, which is before the WCC connects, we're projecting this trend to continue, that the district will spend more than what it's bringing in. Now, obviously, the town has some control over that. This is assuming that you spend exactly what's projected, and you spend exactly what's projected for capital needs as well. But for 2024, if the town were to spend exactly what's projected here and collect what's projected, the water utility would see a but would spend more than what it receives in 2024 by about $86,000. And then in 2025, that trend would continue, but that number would go up to $200,000. And a lot of that is being driven by some of the increases that we're assuming in capital replacement needs in 2025. So we'll want to kind of keep a close eye on that over the next couple of years. That's not enough to fully deplete your cash reserves, but it could get to the point where we're getting close to not meeting those minimum cash reserves that are required. So we'll want to keep a close eye on that. The good news is, once WCC is fully connected, then that trend reverses and we begin to collect more than what we're spending again, and we'll be able to start replenishing some of those cash reserves starting in 2026 and then through 2020. So I think the next couple of years we'll have to keep a close eye on it, obviously. We want to likely try to avoid having to do any type of adjustment in rates because we know that we're going to be reestablishing the rate structure with the WCC, and so if we can avoid that, then that would be positive. So
today we got a letter, I think it's through the Department of Administration anyway, a $4 million purchase order has been issued for phase 1 of the water project, so the state paying for all of it, so there won't be any debt on that.
Yeah, I appreciate you pointing that out. Yeah, so that's the plan. So there's 2 phases. Phase 1 will be paid for, as you said, by the state. So there's no bond issue that the town will be issuing. That's all being taken care of. And then when we get closer to the end of the year, that's when we would be looking at phase 2, which is when we anticipate some type of loan through the state that will be needed. It's possible there could be a need to do a short-term, what we call a bond anticipation note, and I think we kind of talked about that a little bit. The purpose of that, and that would be issued within the next couple months potentially, but would be paid off once we get to the end of the year when we're ready to close on the loan. The purpose of that would be to help pay for engineering-related services, so the design and some of the initial construction costs. Well, no, not construction costs, but design to get us to the end of the year. So that could be a possibility that we may need to do that just to preserve the utility cash balances until we're ready to close out on the loan. But other than that, we would, long-term bonds wouldn't be coming until towards the end of the year.
And their financing has changed, well, you've been dealing with it, on how they're gonna finance it.
Yeah.
It changes all the time.
Keeps changing. Yeah, so we'll kind of see, hopefully some of that will become a little bit more clear here in the next, hopefully by July, starting in July, because that's when SREF comes out with they announce the funding of all the projects, so we should know more by around July in terms of what that financial package might look like. Okay, the other thing I'd point out here real quick, bottom of page 10, we have our conclusion, which kind of summarizes just what we just talked about. And then right below that in table 16, for those that are interested in how the town's rates compare to other utility rates around the state, we show the water bill, the sewer bill, and then the bill in total. So you can see, compared to the state average, the town is a little bit lower excuse me, in a total utility bill.
That's always good.
That's always, yeah. As long as you're not too low, you don't want to be the lowest.
No.
But yeah, something a little bit lower than average is good. A couple real quick things here on page 11. We show the repayment of the 2016 waterworks bonds. Those are outstanding until 2041, so we still have a long ways to go. What I wanted to point out there was, I believe there's a 10-year call provision on those, meaning once we get about 10 years out from 2016 was when they were issued. So about 2025, 2026, what we can do is look at potentially refunding those, because at that point, the town's going to be paying somewhere between 3%, 4%. Now, when we get to 2025, 2026, we may not be able to beat that rate, but it's something I always want to kind of keep an eye on. If we can save some money, we'll look at refinancing those sometime in 2025, 2026.
I think we refinanced the original bond for the tower and the wells and everything. I think that
Yep.
we did.
Yep. And I think, did we also have one on sewer? I was trying to remember now. Well, we'll get to that here in a second. Maybe I was thinking of a long, but, yeah, something we always want to keep an eye on. If there's an opportunity to refund them, then we always look, we'll come back with a recommendation on that. I think that pretty much covers it. For water, any, I guess, questions or comments? All right, so we'll switch to sewer here. And again, on this one, I'll just kind of, if we went through the water in more detail, I'll just kind of summarize results on the sewage works. And so page one, again, just from a cash position standpoint, a little more stable than what we see on the water side. So total cash has hovered around 1.1, almost to $1.2 million per year the last 3 years. So pretty consistent there. So obviously that's a result that the revenues each year for the last 3 years have pretty much matched what the expenditures have been going out. So not a whole lot to report there. It's been pretty consistent. Again, we expect that to change now that the WCC is connected, so we should see some changes both in revenues and expenses going forward. Page 3, we just want to highlight again, that the sewage works cash is sufficient to meet the required minimum reserves. So you'll see that blue line there, that's the required reserves. We used to have a little bit more wiggle room there, and then, over time, that capacity within reserve has shrunk a little bit, but we expect that to start trending the other direction going forward. All right. I think I'm gonna jump ahead if you're okay with it. Going to look ahead to the estimated future health, so let's look maybe on page 7. If there's something you want me to go back to, I'm happy to do that. But starting on page 7 is, again, where we're projecting out revenues and expenses over the next 5 years. So obviously the biggest revenue change is the addition of the WCC revenues. So we've projected that in under table 10, and we've also included the rate reduction that was implemented late last year, earlier this year. So total revenues on an annual basis, we're estimating to run right around $1.97 million per year. Table 11 through table 13 are the projected costs. So table 11 shows the operating costs, the day-to-day operating costs. And then table 12 shows the estimated debt service, and also payment for taxes. So we have included a payment for taxes for the sewage works as well, starting in 2026 to the tune of about $61,000 per year. And then table 13 reflects the capital plan over the next 5 years. And so if we sort of combine all those together, page 9, under table 14, table 15, there's an illustration of, okay, if we're comparing our revenues to our costs, how are we trending? And we're actually seeing, we're projecting that our revenues will pretty closely match what our expenditures will be. However, we will be able to replenish cash a little bit. So that's illustrated under table 15. You can see sort of the upward trend in that line graph there, indicating that cash reserves will continue to go up and also continue to meet what the minimum recommended reserves are. So I think that's about it. Pretty good shape. Obviously, whenever you can decrease rates with any utility, that's a pretty big deal. I always told Mike and Lord before, I could probably count on probably one hand over 25, 26 plus years where we've seen reductions in rates, and it's usually a very one-off situation where you have a very large user coming in, it helps pay bills.
Yeah, that's been our situation.
We've been contacted by another possible large water customer. So, nothing other than that, but that's a report, but that could help too.
Yeah, absolutely. Having those large volume users, as long as if you're having to expand the facilities, as long as they're paying a fair share of that expansion, then that's a good thing. So that's all I have. Appreciate
Thank you,
your
Jeff.
patience.
Thanks.
Yep.
Any questions or anything? Okay, notice we let you on first. So. Take you 2 hours to get home.
Yeah, I know. No, we appreciate it. Appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you. If we have any questions, we'll get ahold of you.
Thanks for coming out.
Absolutely. Yeah, like I said, we'll be, over the next probably 45 days, we'll be closer to wrapping up the comprehensive financial plan. We'll come back and present that to you as well.
MCO.
Hello there. Everybody's got a copy of my report. I want to highlight quite a few of the items. The lead and water service inventory project is proceeding. Aaron Flowers with MCO went to a day seminar on that, and the rules kind of changed as this has been proceeding. It's due in October. We'll have it done, but there may be a fair amount of follow-up. The minimum stuff that's required is probably almost completed. If you only do the minimum stuff, then a lot of people in town will get a letter basically saying that there's a potential that they could have lead in their water lines coming in. So we want to avoid any of those type of hysterical events that would happen, but it's just the way the rule's been written. So we'll be trying to get as much of that done as we can. There's the valve that's on Plain Street, it slowed down for a bit and it started up again. I've been trying to contact D&M. We've talked several times in the past 3 weeks about getting it fixed. I spoke with Bowen today about getting it replaced next week. So if D&M does not respond, we'll have Bowen do it. It's extremely difficult time trying to get contractors out to do these jobs. It's really, really, really tough. I've had 2 contractors just flat out say they won't even do any work here. So
And you've contacted D&M quite a while ago already, haven't you?
it's probably been 2 months. And with Bowen will do it. They're going to cost more, but they'll do it too. So. The downside with Bowen is we'll have to bring a vacuum truck in that adds to it. D&M has their own, and they usually just don't charge it. But everybody's swamped. Marshall's swamped. I mean, they've got probably 3/4 of their company is out here at the correctional center, and that's where a lot of it's going. I know guys out of Chesterton are swamped. I mean, everybody's swamped. You know, Marshall told me a year ago they just won't work here in town. They just don't have the manpower to do it. So it's kind of tough right now. You know, I talked to Paving Laporte, basically it's not the same thing. Just don't have time. So we'll get that taken care of. We do have a broken hydrant on Fairview, and we're going to replace that hydrant with a hydrant in kind. It will not have the big steamer nozzle on it. People may have a problem with that, but it's only a 4-inch water main. So that water main is not going to supply a lot of water to fight fires. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. Hopefully when we get past through this new design phase with that, I would like to see Fairview Street that water main be replaced. It's an old transite water main, and it's outlived its useful life, and its useful life was probably about 10 years. So it needs to be replaced.
I think that's on phase one is to run that first line out
Yes.
along the highway to the correctional
Yes.
facility, and then phase two, which will be the other line, we'll have Fairview.
Yeah. So, we have spent a lot of time with, working with McMahon on the new water plant, the water main project. It's, no one, I don't know if anybody realizes how much investment's been made in the utilities. I think that we're just finishing up between $21 and $22 million wastewater improvement project. For a town the size of Westville, that's pretty incredible. The water project, I think, is going to be somewhere in 28 to 30 million, is probably what it looks like, all construction. So, I mean, it's big, and it's really going to change I think, the way the water system is in Westville. There's a lot of problems, the way it was, and it's typical in a small town. You add here and add there, and it's tough for you to take a look at the big picture. This will definitely provide a lot of changes in being able to firefighting and water quality and multiple feed points. So it's really going to be a very good project for the town. We did receive a letter from IDAM regarding the PFAS sampling, and PFAS is per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. It's what they kind of call the forever chemicals. There's a lot of concern with that, and especially in the drinking water and in the wastewater industry. There's a lot of these when it comes to the wastewater and the sludges of it. The drinking water, there's a lot of concerns with it. We did do sampling, and all the samples, I think there were 18 samples there were 4 samples. They tested for 18 compounds, and of all the samples that were collected, all the results were below detection levels for the town's water system, which is very good news. We will be flushing probably next week or the week. It'll be within the next 2 weeks. We'll be doing towel flushing and hydrant servicing. We've talked about taking the small water tower, having that removed. I think we put that off into include that with the water project. And just have that have the general contractor oversee removal on that other water tower. We've been trying to have it done by Eisler, and Eisler is a demolition contractor, a good contractor. The problem is their window of doing it varies, and it's kind of one of these things that they'll call you on Wednesday and want to do it on Friday. And it's really difficult to do that when they need to set sprinklers up, and you have to have NIPSCOs, have to shield all the power lines, and all these things. So it's been very difficult. Mike and I talked numerous occasions, and then I talked to John, and I said, hey, why don't we just run this in, put this in with the project, and just have Bowen just oversee the demolition of that too. So that's what we're doing. Everything's ready for it to come down, other than NIPSCO's got to remove the power line off of it. The water main's been completely severed from it, so it's ready to go.
Time frame wise?
Pardon?
Time frame wise?
We could probably, once the second phase bids, you could put that in, probably do whenever, I would think.
They'd probably do it the same time they were out raising
They could very well do it.
you gotta raise that 500,000 gallon tank, you gotta raise it 25 feet.
Yeah. So we did have, McMahon did look at it, make sure there wasn't gonna be any problems leaving it out. There's not. So, we did complete the water audit, which is required every other year. Before I I think we had a price for, I think Westville to do it, I think it was 4,000 or 4,500. We completed that, Lori provided the information, and Aaron did it, and then the Alliance of Rural Water came and validated it at no cost, so we got that done and saved the $4,500 this year. I think we'll just be doing it from now on, so that cost, we will not have that cost anymore. On the wastewater end of things, I think our report in the past, South Coast Conservancy District has shown interest in purchasing the old generator at the wastewater, that was at the wastewater plant. However, we did move that generator to the lift station on a temporary basis. It's not big enough to run everything there, but it will run one pump. So until the new generator comes in and is installed, because we're still in the phase 3 of the wastewater project, so we're actually putting a brand new generator out of that lift station, and there's going to be a standby permanently mounted diesel pump installed there also. So we've got really double redundancy on that system, so, which is needed because it won't take very long where we flood that out. So, we are still working on upgrading the Westville Estates lift station. As far as the wastewater treatment plant goes, I'd say it's about 98% complete. Everything's operational except for the effluent reuse system. We're going to be using that, so we can use some effluent, we can use treated effluent for certain processes that get the wastewater plant, so we don't use the drinking water. The clarifier covers are installed on the new clarifier, just so that everybody in the council knows that since we worked on the Newton County Regional Water Sewer District has the same size clarifier that we put in, and they put an aluminum dome on top of that clarifier, so they took their clarifier covers off. So we saved about $25,000. We could use the new ones, or the old ones from there, and Boehm just installed those. So it was, I think it was about $25,000. And finally, we're going to need to meet with NDOT regarding the Highway 201 wastewater plant fence. It's a mess. Right now, you couldn't mow it, I don't think, if you wanted to. There's been so much digging and boring and everything else going on. My opinion is I think the grade needs to be recut, and it needs to be looked at, and they need to cut a different grade in there. One of the fiber companies that installed conduit through there put one of the junction boxes right in the middle of it and caused some restriction of water flow. So I think we're going to need to get a conversation with NDOT over that. It's a mess, and like I said, it's almost impossible to maintain. So, and that's all that I have.
Okay, questions or anything? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, we have the PRP settlement. We got this from the environmental attorney a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And basically, the only thing that he really mentioned, and Doug can probably expand this a little bit, but basically, it's got in there that the town won't enforce any environmental issues, which that's why we have the EPA and IDEM, because they have deep pockets, so it really doesn't have an effect, I don't think, for the town on that.
Not really.
So you've reviewed it, it's probably pretty much
Yep, that's fine.
boilerplate.
Yep.
Well, after almost 25 years,
Thank God.
I'll make a motion that we approve the PRP settlement.
Second.
Motion made by Albert, second by Mr. Paszynski to approve the PRP settlement. Is there any discussion? Mr. Paszynski?
Yes.
Mrs. Poforski?
Yes.
Mrs. Deal?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Albert votes yes, passes 5-0. I think that's what we got for that one. Okay, we have Resolution 2024-2, SRF Loan Program signing authorization. Basically, what this is resolution for the SRF loan program for the water expansion that I am the signatory that the council authorizes me, which is the council president. I am the signatory. So we have Resolution 2024-2, SRF Loan Program Signatory Authorization Resolution. Whereas the town of Westville, Indiana, the participant has plans for drinking water infrastructure improvement project, meets state and federal regulations. The participant intends to proceed with the construction of such project. Now therefore be it resolved by the Town Council, the governing body participant, that Michael Albert, President, Westville Town Council, be authorized to make application for a state revolving loan and provide SRF location program such information, data, and documents pertaining to the loan process as may be acquired or required, and otherwise act as authorized representative of the participant. And two, the participant agrees to comply with state and federal requirements they pertain to the SRF loan program. And three, 2 certified copies of this resolution be prepared and submitted as part of the participant's preliminary engineering report. I'll make a motion that we adopt Resolution 2024-2.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Albert, seconded by Ms. Kelly to adopt the resolution. Is there any discussion? Mr. Paszynski?
Yes.
Mrs. Poforski?
Yes.
Mrs. Deal?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Albert votes yes. Passes 5-0. And then from the SRF, we have another resolution. It's 2024-3. It's a acceptance resolution whereas Town Council, Town of Westville, Indiana has caused a preliminary engineering report, a PER dated March 2024, to be prepared by the consulting firm of McMahon and Associates, Inc. Whereas said PER has been presented to the public at a public hearing on May 14th, 2024 at the Town of Westville Town Hall for public comment. Whereas the Town of Westville Town Council finds there is not sufficient evidence presented in objection to the recommended project of the PER. Now therefore be resolved that the PER dated March 2024 be approved and adopted by the Westville Town Council, and the said PER be submitted to the state revolving loan program for review and approval. This is what we've done on everything for the SRF.
Mm-hmm.
I'll make a motion that we adopt resolution 2024-3.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Albert, seconded by Ms. Kelly to approve resolution 2024-3. Any discussion? Mr. Paszynski?
Yes.
Mrs. Poforski?
Yes.
Mrs. Deal?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Albert votes yes, passes 5-0. Okay, that's it, I think, under utilities. Streets, Mr. B.
The only thing I have on streets is, Bubba's been trying to get one of these for the last couple of years. The way I understand it now, we have the money to do so. This is a Coyote right out here at Bronson. It's reused all around town, mainly the park. You can spray, it'll save fuel, it's a diesel, it's a 3-cylinder. I can pass this around, you can read it. Right now when we take out and spray weeds, we have use a big tractor. We have Bubba walking behind the tank with the sprayer wand, Ken driving the tractor forward so we can put the tank in the fitter. This has a dump cart on it. One man can do it himself. It also has attachments for plowing. If we want to plow the sidewalks with it, it'll work for that. But mainly, too, when Bubba's out there on a Saturday or something by himself, he just told me the other day, he had a tractor out there, then he needed a truck, a dump truck. So he walked back to the park, or he said if I had this cart, I could have just put everything that I needed there the first time, and then got it. So here it is, I'll read it to you. It's a 24-horse, 3-cylinder diesel, differential lock. It has air conditioning and heat. It's an enclosed cab. It has a front and rear hitch, a sprayed bed liner. and it has an electric dump bed, but we're gonna decline that because it said we can manually dump it ourselves. The total package listed is $27,500, municipal discount is $2,000, and by taking off the electric dump, our cost would be $23,900. We've talked with Lori and discussed it, we have the money to do so. So I would like to make a motion that we purchase it.
I'll second.
Motion made by Mr. Brzezinski, seconded by Mrs. Pethorsky to purchase the Coyote CVT from Bronson. Any discussion? Mr. Brzezinski?
Yes.
Mrs. Pethorsky?
Yes.
Mrs.
Yes.
Neal? Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Albert votes yes, passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Anything else on,
That's all I got.
no salt or anything?
So we got what we had ordered. We got it all in there because we thought we was gonna have to store it out here to the elevator and they was gonna charge us so much.
Oh.
It's
Parks?
been a mild winter.
Yeah,
I'm good.
okay. Police, he's on a call. Finance, we have salary ordinance amendment 2024-6. Remember, we were moving money from the lit.
Yeah, we were just paying the part-timers from the lit public safety fund, we're moving it back to the general fund, that's all that is.
Okay.
So it's over already? Yep.
Yeah, well, because the part-time.
Because of, yeah.
They had so many hours, so yeah.
We have ordinance 2024-6, I'll read it by title only. An ordinance of the Town Council of Westville, LaPorte County, Indiana, amending ordinance 2024-3, an ordinance that amended salary ordinance 2023-11. I will make a motion that we adopt on the first, approve on the first reading ordinance 2024-6.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Albert, seconded by Ms. Kelly. Is there any discussion? Mr. Brzezinski?
Yes.
Mrs. Pethorsky?
Yes.
Mrs. Deal?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Albert votes yes, passes 5-0. I'll make a motion that we suspend the rules and adopt 2024-6.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Albert, seconded by Ms. Kelly to suspend the rules and adopt ordinance 2024-6. Is there any discussion? Mr. Brzezinski?
Yes.
Mrs. Pethorsky?
Yes.
Mrs. Deal?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Albert votes yes, passes 5-0. We got Baker Tilly, no fire department report. Told you about the $4 million for the water. And that, they anticipate that first phase of the project starting possibly by the end of June to run the new main to Westville.
That's why we're not doing any roads.
Yeah, the first part is gonna tie into the main by, back here by Dairy Queen where it ends, the bigger line, and then it'll go, a lot of it will be poured down to under 6 and then up to Circle Drive to the railroad. And then the second phase will be for the water plant along 2, down 1100 to 600, and then it'll be also improving the lines that run on East Valparaiso past the school, be bigger lines, because when they did that model, that's where their pressure issues would be, and that's all picked up by DOC on this project. But that's probably,
I'll tear my fence out.
yeah, that's part of the plan, they're gonna get your fence.
That's good.
No, guys.
Bless them all.
It's a big water main you're putting out there.
Yeah.
They're putting
It's
12-inch water main.
12-inch water main. And A and B Street will be in on that, I think, but it's gonna be a big operation.
It's gonna whoop the whole town. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the project, it's
It's gonna take how long to do that?
It's very low.
How long is it gonna take to do that?
a couple of years.
Couple of years, yeah.
Where they run that main phase through from the tower? They're gonna run it out towards McDonald's and down 421. and not run through Coulter's Field there?
They,
Behind the subdivision?
it all depends.
On the east side or the west side?
Are we ever gonna annex that Coulter Field and bring it into the town?
Probably not right away.
I mean, we have the improvements now to be able to do it. I know it's plotted.
But you
for
don't,
200 homes.
you don't get anything on farmland unless they're planning on doing something with it.
Right, but wasn't that plotted for 200 homes already?
It may have been when it was CEM off the, Joliet,
Yeah.
but,
It doesn't show on our beacon.
no, and there
It'd be
was,
platted.
yeah, and I think there was kind of a falling out amongst that group maybe.
Very much so.
So, I mean, that's,
I was just curious.
yeah.
Yeah. And that was the rumor years ago.
Yeah, they, I think, when they were sitting there thinking, what could they do, that came up, but nothing official.
I'm glad to hear we're getting the mains replaced. Long time needed,
The what?
the water lines
Oh,
replaced.
yeah, it's,
Gonna be a bunch of them, the old original 1928 stuff. We got a museum out there.
Avenue A and Avenue B,
Mhm.
because that's all translated by the two, so.
Do you have any fence
When
there?
it comes to,
we can hit, or-
when it comes to paving on Avenue B, I'll,
Yeah, it,
It'll look like an interstate highway
leave it up to
system.
them.
Okay, is there
Or
anything,
A, I mean, not B, I'm sorry.
do you have any fence there we can hit?
We can hit it all.
Oh, okay.
It's insured.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
If I may.
Oh,
Mr.
you may.
We've received proposed easements both for the water and sewer from McMahon Associates, and I'm asking a council member to authorize the president to sign.
Was that for, out here at, easements from the DOC property?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because that's chained continuously too.
Yep.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we agree to the sign for the easements for the DOC at Westville Correctional Facility. Motion made by Albert, second by Mr. Mashinsky to approve the easement, sign the easement agreement. Is there any discussion? Mr. Mashinsky?
Yes.
Mrs. Pethorsky?
Yes.
Mrs. Deal?
Yes.
Ms. Keller?
Yes.
Albert votes yes, 5-0. Anything else? I will make a motion that we adjourn. We got stuff to sign here.
Wait, they got maybe.
Yes.
West-
Question.
Citizens
This goes back to what the previous time I was here, Parks Department, possibly doing a customer appreciation day. Obviously, Mr. Krasinski just let you know when anything closed down, we're going to need some approval for that.
I thought we already approved it, you just need to get a hold of them.
That's what I just wanted to double check. Obviously, we're gonna fix the water issue on the plane, but it has caused the, back of the building to start to sink due to all the water sitting there. The asphalt in the alleyway is also taking beating from the council and being pretty much underwater.
On Plain
The street department with it as well.
The water's out of my hands, the streets I can take care of.
You understand?
Jeff, those two, I'll give them to Jim. Did Jim tell them?
Yeah, there's stuff, there's
Oops, sorry.
2 things to sign, 3
Here, Jim,
signatures per
Jim
page.
needs those.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Motion made by Albert, seconded by Mr. Mashinsky to adjourn. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Being none, meeting adjourns at 8:03.
That was really.
There's gonna be 3 resolutions of each one, they all need signed.
We all did, we
Yeah,
did, no, those,
sign
we
it.
did. Jim's gonna sign those.
You know, some, they want us to sign it, send it back, and other stuff, they don't want copies, we have to do an